Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Facilities Management, the True Value Proposition. Not what we do, but why and how we deliver the circular value. Brought to you by Larry Morgan and hosted by IFMA's Corporate Facilities Council. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded and you are muted to prevent background noise during the presentation. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the questions box, and if time permits, Larry will answer your questions at the end of the presentation. I now turn you over to the CFC's immediate past president, Wayne Weitzel.
Everyone, thank you, Kylie. Everyone, we're very excited at the council here to bring you this webinar, and we have to say none of this is possible were not for our excellent sponsors that you see on the screen there, from our titanium sponsor SenseFix to our platinum sponsor First On Site Tersano, and also eStructure, who is both a platinum and a LATAM sponsor, as well as our new sponsor Empire Office, a gold sponsor. So please, if you haven't already, check these companies out. They are really interesting organizations, cutting edge, and we thank them so much for their sponsorship. So without them, this wouldn't be possible. We'd also like to, for those of you that don't know, tell you about the fact that the CFC won Council of the Year at IFMA's World Workplace. So this is a wonderful acknowledgement of all the hard work that our team has done here in rebranding the council and delivering you good quality education like this. And as an extra bonus, our LATAM Lighthouse leader for the CFC, Jose Diaz, won Emerging Professional of the Year. So it was a exciting time at World Workplace, and we're very proud of our team for that. So with that, I'd like to introduce Larry, and I'm going to go off script a little bit here. And Larry, I can see you there on the screen. I'll start by saying this. I've known Larry almost as long as my entire IFMA career, as long as that's been. And that's been, gosh, Larry, what do you think? Like 20 years, I think, probably, or close to that I've known you.
Come on, you're dating us now. It's been a minute.
For those of you that don't know Larry, you will quickly find out when talking to him. Larry tells you like it is, and I like that about Larry. I like that he doesn't pull his punches, and he gives you honest, upfront answers. But what I like most about Larry and his character is I've been able to observe him. He treats everybody the same, whether you're a prince or a pauper, whether you're a king or a common person. Larry talks to you and interacts with you the same way, and to me, that's a big green flag of a good guy. And then you add all this knowledge that Larry has about facilities and his role, and the fact that he's one of IFMA's most sought after instructors, and also he's credentialed as instructors in other organizations as well. When you add all of that together, you've got somebody that really has a lot of knowledge. So Larry is currently serves on the Global Real Estate and Facilities Management team at SAP, and he's worked with Oracle, Boston Properties, and Lincoln Properties in the past. And he's also been a former IFMA Board of Directors member as well, former Distinguished Member of the Year. And I think, Larry, you're one of the first guys I really looked up to with credentialing. You know, you had the trifecta, the CFM, SFP, and FMP, and you kind of live and breathe and walk the talk, as they say. But it's been a pleasure being not only someone that has looked up to you and been mentored by you, but also just to hang around you and talk to you about music and everything. So you're one of my IFMA buddies. So we really appreciate you doing this for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Larry here. You're in for a treat, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Wayne, and thanks, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you today. So I have my quick background, other than Dwayne money that I spent on his introduction, and money well spent. I'm a career facilities person. Excuse me. Out of the United States Air Force, 1982, kind of wandered around. After you get out of the military, what do you do? And I found this career purely by accident. I actually working for my father's. Somebody's muted. Got background. Somebody in your guys' side needs to mute.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback, Kylie.
Not for me.
Try again, Larry.
Okay, there it goes. All right, so I No, still got it.
Larry, I think it's because you joined twice. Let me
How
disable
rude.
1 second. Larry, go ahead and unmute the mic you're using now and let's see.
How's that?
You tell me. I don't hear anything, but what about you?
No echo.
Perfect.
I thought it was just my two brain cells bouncing around. Okay, so out of the military, kind of wandered around, fell into facilities management purely by accident. Of course, at that point in time, they didn't really call it facilities management. So I started out as a janitor on the loading dock at Hewlett Packard on the graveyard shift. So yeah, I've heard all the bottoms up, crappy beginning. For whatever jokes you want to make, cool, I can get it. I got Teflon skin. Worked my way up through the ranks of Hewlett Packard, janitorial, electrical, plumbing, facilities management, HVAC. So had a long career at HP. Awesome properties like Wayne said, Lincoln Property Company, a few years with Oracle, now 19 plus years with SAP as a regional facilities manager. So while I was preparing the thoughts for this, and as Wayne mentioned, I teach these classes all over the world, been part of IFMA for a long time. I've been to many presentations, World Workplace, Fusion, those presentations are all cool. And I'm thinking, well, what's new? What can we send to the ether, the IFMA ether, that is interesting and new? And I start thinking about, well, what is it that we actually really do in facilities? I mean, what's our true thing? And I'll kind of go through those. So that's the background slide. So I start thinking about, and Wayne and I had kind of rough conversations around this. I've been to many of his presentations, top shelf. What's the value of what it is that we do? I mean, because traditionally we've been transactional, right? It's about money, it's about budgets and all these other things. And that's all good, but really, what is it that we do? So let's hit some slides and let me give you some background. So the first slide obviously is the introductory slide. We went through the sponsorship stuff. So what are the learning objectives? So topic one, we need to get past the surface speak. It's big picture visual, the reality of what it is we do. I am a big proponent of alignment horizontally to the C-suite and not just vertically, because traditionally facilities has been a very linear organization. We're very vertical, right? It's the boss, this facilities people, and it's just straight down the line. But that's just a transaction kind of thing. What about the value we bring when we have a cross-functional perspective, the C-suite language? Because a lot of things that we do mean different things to different organizations, like an HR type project, whatever that may be. That's really about warm and fuzzy, because that's what HR is, attraction, retention of employees. But you have that same conversation about something that HR wants or needs. You have that conversation with finance and they're going, well, how much is this going to cost? Or what's the ROI? What's the net present value? All the finance terms. So, we're going to cover how to think about things horizontally, not vertically. Big topic. I am a massive proponent of transformational activity versus transactional activities, non-financial versus financial, with the intent to have impactful outcomes. When this really kind of hit me hard is when we came out of COVID. This return to office issue, how do we get people to come back, the physiological reaction to the built environment, how come people aren't coming back into the office unless they're forced to? We're starting to see a little bit of a migration now, but we're still globally, if you take survey information from IFMA or Cushman Wakefield or Colliers or any other ones that spit out these, or JLL that spit out these occupancy reports, still pretty low. Maybe 35, 40, 50%. We're starting to see 60% in some places, depends. But that's a lot of real estate that still is empty. And this actually happened pre-COVID. When I was part of the global site selection team, we were going around the world looking at potential locations. We have 262 locations around the world of various scope, owner occupied data centers, leased tenants in buildings, sublet tenants. So the portfolio is pretty diverse. We still start seeing a lot of empty space in some particular instances. Post-COVID, what happened? We started getting into these projects about how do we make the space cool to get people to come in? What do we do? Additional amenities, 2 different kinds of coffee. So you have the pizza Starbucks people fighting over who's had the best coffee. We've all ran into that. But what was the intent? Was the intent to get people back in the office? Was it productivity? Who drove it? Was it a line of business leader? Was it who was it? So I started saying, well, there has to be a better way to approach this. So once we'll talk through those things. What about the success metrics and measurements? We all heard the term, you can't manage what you can't measure, but what is those? How do we measure this? I mean, yes, we have the transactional, the budget. Are we on budget? 5% variance, above, below, CapEx, 10%. That's cool. I get that. I could train a monkey to read a budget to tell we are on track or not. But how do we really know what we're measuring? So I am going to the next slide. This is a snapshot of this, what I call total operational readiness. This combination between people, places, and process. What's the balance? Depends on what kind of organization you are in or what line of business is in that particular location. Is it people-centric? Is it place-centric? Like a data center is a place-centric. Or now we have this big AI thing coming up. So that's going to be heavy place, heavy data center, heavy infrastructure. About the process, what's that blend? Is it 33 1/3 spread around? Is it 60-40 or is it 60-20-10? Whatever that is we can visualize where we have to put our efforts in these buckets, so to speak. So again, I mentioned that I am a career facility. I'm an OG facilities guy. I don't like to call us facilities management at the level we're in. We're facilities leaders, and that's a mentality we have to take. But I start thinking, well, why am I like that? So if we go to the next slide. So great visuals. When people ask us, what do we do? So like if your family asks you, well, you're a facilities manager, your friend asks you, or whoever asks you, what is it? What do you do? What does a facility manager do? I don't know, just print this out and show them. It's going to be a short conversation while they are dazzled by all the things that we actually do. This is actually a cool tool when you want to get a raise or you're asking for an increase in your salary. Just circle all the things that you do, because each one of these little spiderweb things has an intrinsic value to them, whatever it may be. Risk management, yes, there's value to having a safe and secure location because you could get into litigation. Keep going down the list. So next slide, please. So how do we get past the surface speak? Well, typically, behind salaries and compensation is what we do. The assets, the physical assets, the buildings, and all the hard and soft services that are part of those day-to-day operations, whatever it may be. So the difference between financial and non-financials, what is the value of that? It's up to you to understand that, but as long as we can visualize what's an asset from a hard services, a building, a chiller, or whatever it may be, and the soft service, janitorial, security, food services, there's a value to those things, not just monetary values. There's non-financial values. I'm a big proponent of right things versus things right. It's leadership versus management. Take an 80-20 approach. They're 2 different approaches altogether. This conversation we're having today is specifically related to right things, the leadership side. So we should have another category called facilities leadership and bolt that onto facilities management, because management is about just things right, executing things, whatever it may be, keeping the lights on. That's the right thing. Right, so it's two different approaches. One is performance-based, so leadership is performance-based, and things right is prescriptive. There's 2 different approaches altogether. From a facilities leadership, the value comes from performance facilities management comes from prescriptive. My world, we always take an 80-20 approach. Asking ourselves, and let's go back to this post-COVID thing about creating these new cool spaces with this wild furniture and colors and all those amenities. Are we really doing the right thing here? What's the output? What are we really looking at? We know the input. We're good at construction manager. We have great vendors, the Millikens, Shaws, and Hayworths, and Steelcase. We're great at all that stuff, the transactional stuff, but is it the right thing that we're really doing? Got to be able to measure it, and we'll talk about that. Next slide, please. So again, the idea is to move away from the vertical, the transactional, to the horizontal, which is transformational. We need to align horizontally, not vertically, because the built environment is inherently people-centric. The people is why we exist, unless you're in manufacturing, but still people. Okay, if you're a Tesla plant, I get it. It's putting cars on the streets, but you still have to have people there. It's called a physiological reaction to the built environment. It's science-based. It's based on thermal comfort, cleanliness, lighting, noise, color, whatever that may be. So if we take that approach, then we have a value proposition. We all know, just by having been in this business a long time, probably our number one complaint from the customers, guest visitors, people in our buildings is hot or cold. Well, there's a science-based approach to how you deal with those issues. It's called thermal comfort. Discussion for another time. If you want, you can ping me on the side and I can walk you through how to understand that and how to apply this physiological reaction to the built environment. So you have a value proposition, not a trend. Okay, so it's hot or cold, what happens? Well, you adjust the thermostat, you send somebody up to adjust the thermostat, 20 minutes later, you got to go readjust. That's transactional, it's not transformational. We are critical sustainers of the organization's business, depending on the demand organizations. What is it that they actually do? If we are in a multi-line of business building, again, think of it, a mergers and acquisitions team or legal, they have a completely separate want, need, probably based around confidentiality. So their need is much different than a programmer's environment where they have a bunch of people in pits doing programming or whatever that may be. It's in the same building, but it's a different demand organization. So are we creating this value proposition about the right work environments? Or are we just using cookie cutter stuff saying, okay, this is just transactional. It's cost per person, per square meter, whatever it may be. We are the enhancers of the core business function as enablers of their business. That's why we exist. Goes back to this total operational readiness slide that we showed. What about your external support vendors? I don't call them contractors, or I hate that term because it just has this connotation of transaction. Your partnership with these janitorial company, food services, landscaping, facility services people, elevator, whatever, security, we have to have this approach that there is a partnership. It's a partnership. That's the value, because they're supposed to be the subject matter experts in their particular field. I can't know everything about everything. So I want them to be a partner with me, not based on transaction. I get an invoice, they do the work, I pay the invoice, and vice versa. That's very transactional. What value is that? It's just transactional. Support vendors need to have a partnership mentality, and we have to have that mentality with them as well. Next slide, please. So we moved from transformational to transactional. At the start of 2022, the most asked questions, now this came from many different sources, JLL, Cushman, Collier, CBRE, name it. The most asked questions from real estate organizations is, when are things going to get back to normal pre-COVID? They're never. They're not. I think all of us are mostly experiencing that. The question is, what is the new normal? I don't know. We're still seeing deviations in statistics about how many people are coming back, why they're coming back. Again, this is a people-centric business we're in, so there's no real one way to figure out what's what. But what is the new normal? I think we're still going to figure it out. I have preached up and down that we need to stop thinking about 2023, 2024 and maybe into 2025 data, because it's static data. We got to give this whole new world we live in, the new normal, probably another year to breathe, because we've had hundreds of years of the transactional data, but we don't have enough statistical data or any kind of data about what the new normal is. Maybe 2026 we'll start understanding more about it. What does the new environment look like? What's the new normal? I think that once we get our hands and head around this new normal, we'll be able to better enhance, build, and drive impactful outcomes. That's my team's mentality. Are we enhancing something? Do we need to build something new? But it all has to have one bottom line, an impactful outcome. We need to enhance the experience, build the right mentality internally and externally, and drive success that has impactful outcomes. What does that mean? I don't know. It could be a new KPI, new service level agreement, could be a new scope of work. We'll cover some of those in a minute here, but I just want to lay the groundwork for that. Our job in today's environment, in my humble opinion, is to enhance, build, and then drive some impactful outcome based on the needs of the business entities. Sustainability is nothing new to us from a facilities perspective, because we ran the most inefficient buildings, we had the most waste, use the most power, use the most gas, use the most water. We wouldn't be in business, because that's transactional. But now what about sustainability? Think of it as a core business activity. Use the triple bottom line approach about the environment, the economics, and the social side of things. We've all heard circular economy in one way, shape, form, or another. But what does that truly mean? So we have to do a little bit more research on circular economy. Primarily, it's developed in two phases, or three: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. For us in facilities, a majority of our carbon footprint comes from scope 3, our supply chain, carpet, furniture, you name it. So taking that approach. I also am a believer in balancing the mentality around sustainability. There is a guy named Bjorn Lomborg who has a book out in a movie. It's been out for a while. It's called Cool It, where he actually talks about, yes, there is climate change. Do humans cause an effect? I mean, you can debate this thing up and down, whether it's a natural cycle or whether humans contribute to it. But his approach to this whole discussion is the business approach. And I think that's a pretty important discussion. We can all agree that climate change is bad for the environment. We want to leave the environment better for our kids than it is for us. I get all that. But from a facilities leadership perspective, there's a cost to this. And does your organization have a policy around it? Is there executive endorsement around sustainability? Because if the big boss says, it's cool, but maybe not, you're going to have a tough time to embed sustainability as part of your core DNA. It's getting better. Fortunately, in my case, we have a chief sustainability officer. So we have, and I work on that global ESG team, environmental, social governance team. So I know that I have the ears and eyes of C-suite people when I come up with maybe a proposal like a PV system, or now it's nano nuclear for our data centers, whatever it may be, but it's a business. I get it's good for the environment. Sustainability is now part of a strategic core business activity. Next slide, please. So where are we heading with this? Well, according to everybody that I talk to, there's no real substantial return to office. We kind of covered this a little bit before. The structured hybrid environment, creating these open environments where people come in and they sign in, or the open desk environment, whatever it means, no reserve conference rooms, whatever that whole structure is kind of fading right now. What we now look at it as called hushed hybrid. We don't really talk about it. We don't really make people feel kind of weird if they don't sign in and sit at a certain desk at a certain time at a certain place. We just call it hushed hybrid. We create the built environment that allows increased productivity for whatever line of business is, and we let you do your thing. It's called hushed hybrid. The data doesn't lie. Still, 12% of executives with hybrid or remote employees, there are only 12% of them currently right now, as of March in 2025, when I started really kind of putting my thoughts together on how to present this. Only 12% are going to have this enforced return to office. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with this CapEx investment of all this real estate, whether it's leases and cool spaces and furniture and chairs and carpet and amenities, but only 12% of them are going to make people come back in the office. It may change. We'll see. We are taking, and I highly suggest you take a look at this if you really want to add the value proposition to this whole discussion, is what we call full stack hospitality. It's a blend of real estate, services, infrastructure, into curating this one seamless work experience, meaning that we can do the same thing with half the space and give those employees, guests, and visitors twice the experience. It's a proven fact we can. We know what our vacant real estate is. So let's make it a cool real estate space for half the price and give people twice the experience. If you've ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, you'll understand what full stack hospitality is. Now, a little bit out of my pay grade, but every once in a while I'll treat the wife to, anniversary or birthday, and we'll stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay because I get to golf and she gets to chill. So, I have an ulterior motive to do this. When you check in, when you register first, when you check in, you have to put in your vehicle make, model, serial number, and license plate number. When you check in, they have a list of what it is. So when you pull in, the valet says, "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan." They already knew my name. First experience. Go to the receptionist desk. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Morgan. Welcome. Your room's ready." And you go to the room and they got something in there, bottle of champagne or whatever. I don't drink, so it doesn't matter. Your experience in general should be full stack. In our real estate portfolio, our facilities should have this new approach, this transformational approach called full stack. Because it's not about where we work anymore. It's about how well we meet, create, and connect when we do. This whole idea about this open collaborative work environment started long before it was the water cooler discussion, when people got around the water cooler and had a social interaction. They called it, I forgot the name, it was something about bumping each other. It was arbitrary connections. There was some science around it. Next slide, please. So how do we measure all this stuff? Well, first of all, I highly suggest that you look at your current service level agreements, your internal service level agreements. Do they match the external service, the contracts that you have with your vendors? They must match the current needs and wants, so we can reinforce, reflect, and reset. Let me give you just a classic example of this. In many of the classes I teach around the world, when we're talking about operation maintenance and procurement and contracting, or whatever it ends up being, whatever bucket it fits in, project management as well too, I ask them, what is your current service level agreement internally about elevator entrapment? I'm just giving you an example. If you are in a C-suite building, sales building, marketing building, external customers, high-end stuff, and God forbid the elevator crashes on a Friday afternoon and your 5 C-suite people are stuck in an elevator and they push the "hey, get me out" button, does it work? What does the end of the line tell them? Well, according to the contract, the elevator repair company will be there in 4 hours. That's going to be a career limiting contract. Because if a C-suite party is stuck in an elevator for 4 hours while the elevator company comes and gets them out, I think the next day's conversation will not be pretty. So think about all as an example. So maybe you need to adjust the service level agreement with the external party to say 30 minutes or less, whatever it may be. Makes sense, right? So we need to look at our current service level agreements, match them internally and externally, and if they're good, reinforce it. Market the hell out of it. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this location, here's facilities department, and this, we have current, however you want to do it, I can help you with it on the side, but there is a huge element of what we do that's not marketed appropriately, going back to the FMI map. Prioritize your service level agreements. I just gave you an example. Your current service level agreement should be no more than 2 years old. Your contractual, the service level agreement, scope of work, scope of services, however your procurement department flushes it out in the contracts. This should be no more than 2 years old, because if they're older than 2 years old, they're not effective anymore. Measure manually. Survey. How are we doing? Start with some reference point. Then what about your external key performance indicators, your KPIs? What's the new value? Are they old? No, we're talking internal service level agreements, or if they're more than 2 years old, they're old. They're probably not, they're not conducive to what the new work environment is right now. So what about your KPIs of your service level contractors? Again, the match should be, what's the value proposition here? I get the transaction side of things because contracts cost money, but do they match the needs of the current service level agreements? That's where the value proposition happens. Think contractual obligations, but think internally first. Next slide, please. So how do we internalize our success metrics and strengths? Well, I think we all have satisfaction surveys. Okay, cool. But are they really relevant? Because the data is worthless without a plan to do something with the results. I can't even count how many times I ask my students and other entities and people I support outside of my normal day job, what do your satisfaction surveys say? Well, they say this and it's a wrong priority, or they give this big broad range, you know, between 0 and 100. Yeah, okay, sure, that really works. Really super good facility leadership already knows what's going on. They have a pretty good sense of what's happening. They have the data already. How many hot or cold calls do we get a week, or janitorial, whatever it may be? We already have a pretty good idea what's going on. The worst thing you can ever do from a value proposition is have a satisfaction survey and not have a plan to do something about it. Yes, have a plan to do something about it. Prioritize the satisfaction surveys. If the number one reason why we exist is this risk issue, risk avoidance, mitigation, transfer, health and safety, any compliance issues, those things are non-negotiable. So in the year 2025, how many slip, trip, falls, or health-related reportable incidents did you have on your property? 0, good, rank it. How much core business support do we need? What's the indoor environmental quality issues? How are our amenities? Our scale is 0 to 5. A median range score, 3.0, means at 3.0, we're doing what we said we're doing. If 0, fired, 5, nobody's better than that. One question we do ask is, on a scale, overall, how would you rate the facilities department's ability to proactively provide and enhance and respond to your workplace experiences? See, we ask them about the experience because that's the value proposition. Notice one thing we do not ask: comments. We don't ask comments. Why? Well, for number one, I think we all have experienced the majority of the comments have some negative statement to it. Ah, facility sucks. I never get what I want. It's always hot or cold in here, or whatever. Okay. You know, you're going to get 20% of the population just miserable about something, whether external life experiences, whatever. So they're going to take it out on you. So again, we can't measure those comments. So we don't even allow comments to take place. Just a thought. Because now I can establish the value proposition. All right, next slide, please. So let me give you some follow-up thoughts here. From an organizational level, C-suite thinking. What's the purpose of purpose? Why the why of work? How does purpose and profit connect together? They need to be harmonious rather than mutually exclusive. So from an organizational level, we need to create those experiences. What do I want to go in the office for? What happens when I get there? Am I productive? Can I be productive? They may subliminally think of it that way, or maybe not. Maybe they just flat out say, I don't need to go in the office because I have a cool home office, and what's the purpose of me going in the office? So what is the purpose of the purpose? Now there's marketing behind that. There's HR issues. They may be forced to come in the office, mandatory return to the office, maybe, but it has to be in a harmonious experience, not mutually exclusive. Quality versus quantity. The quality of the space, we talked about that before. Why do I have all this real estate that's 60% empty? That's money. Quality versus quantity. Think of it from an outside approach. Stop thinking like a facilities manager. Start thinking like a facilities leader, and that horizontal approach. The C-suite, who are they? Who are the primary drivers of what? HR, IT, finance, whatever it may be. Take that outside in approach. Think like they do. Manage by walking around. Any lessons that we can learn? Do an open analysis. I work for SAP. I might become more often now because I'm actually because my but I have action. Not analysis paralysis drives me absolutely insane. Oh, let's think about it for 18 months. Well, in 18 months goes by, it's a whole new game. Again, what about your service levels? Are you doing the right thing versus just things right? If you're doing the right thing, that's transformational. If it's things right, it's transactional. Set up this net new thinking, not only internally, but with your vendors as well, too. Okay, next slide, please. So we talked about this follow-up thoughts on the organizational level, but what about individuals? I can tell you, because I have access to many high-level people, Wayne and I do, and all the people at IFMA, the new thinking right now, these individual high-value traits are different. It's not about, do you show up, or have you managed the budget before, or are you a good project manager, or your employment history. Excuse me. What most high-value organizations are they're quietly scanning for these traits. They're probably not going to ask you during an interview unless you're a really good recruiter that asks the right questions. Do you have the nerve? Facilities leadership, you got to have a lot of nerves. We all know that. The courage, clarity, speed, transparency. We have to have this unrelenting bias for action, not analysis paralysis. Do you have the nerve to make decisions that could go right and could go wrong? And that's cool. I'm good with stuff that goes wrong as long as you learn something from it. And one of the other high value traits is elasticity, meaning we should, in our world, update about 25% of our skills every 18 months. Learn something new. I'm trying to understand quantum mechanics right now. Yeah. Okay. I tried to learn Mandarin Chinese last year. Didn't work out so well. The reason I'm trying to understand quantum mechanics right now is because the AI world. I am not going to be Einstein or any of those little super brain guys, but I understand the general concept of it, the relativity of the environment, the quantum mechanics of things. I'm not going to write a white paper for Berkeley, but I understand the language. At least I can pretend like it. Have your regular relationships. Mentorships. IFMA has many, many, many opportunities for mentorships, mentee-mentee relationship. Collaborate with people that are different than yourself. Ask if you can sit in a meeting with your organization that's not a facilities meeting. Can you sit in an HR meeting or an IT meeting or a development meeting or a finance meeting? Can you sit in with those people and and kind of absorb what it is that they're doing? Positivity, accountability, resilience, self-awareness. Be self-aware. I mean, the leadership should be able to go in the mirror and look and say, maybe not a good day, or maybe a great day. They're looking for the soundness of who you are. And the last thing I'll leave you with this is wonderment. Be curious. I mean, you're part of the reason you're here today is because you're curious what this was all about. This intellectual curiosity, be culturally fluent, look around corners, be proactive, have the instinct to bring the outside in. When I travel around the world and I teach, I make it a very specific point to absorb the culture of the environment. So yeah, let's say if I went to Barcelona, which I just did, I don't put the American tourist hat on. I'll kind of spend a day or two looking at the culture, dress like the culture, trying to absorb myself in the culture, because that's intellectual curiosity. Or the Middle East, completely different culture in the Middle East. I spent a lot of time in Dubai. And even though it's the Middle East, the Dubai culture is a hell of a lot different than the Saudi Arabian culture or the Kuwaiti culture. Yes, it's the Middle East, two different environments altogether. But it helps me bring that outside in. So I'll leave you. And one thing I think is critically important is this communication. We hear it all the time. Communication, communication is everything. Well, that's true. So I'll leave you with a communication story, and then we'll stop there and leave it open. This is about effective and efficient communication, the value of communication. There's this elderly couple that lives in the Northeast, and they're getting ready to retire. They want to get out of the cold. They've had it. So the husband does some research and he finds one of those, adult communities in Florida, and he's going to go down a couple days ahead of time to execute the contracts, the deeds, set up the movers, and all that other stuff. The wife doesn't want to go; she's not a travel freak. So he goes down, does his thing, goes back to the hotel room that night, and he writes an email back to the wife. Problem was he misspelled, left out one or two letters, so the email went to a wrong person. Now, it just so happened that day, that lady who received the email had buried her husband. He had died the day before. So she opens up the email, she's done with the services. She comes home. She says, well, I want to see what other kind of condolences came through emails, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she opens up her emails and she's going through them, and she comes across this one that looks kind of strange to her. She hasn't seen this email address from somebody. She opens it up. Hi, honey. Just want to let you know I arrived on time. Getting here was pretty easy. The people here are very welcoming. She hits the deck. She thinks it's from her dead husband. Closes out by saying, pack lightly. It's really hot down here. Communication. So I'll leave you with that. Communication is vital. So open up the questions now, Kylie and Wayne, if you have any kind of feedback. I guess you guys can get this presentation if you want to do stuff. If anybody ever wants to do a little bit deep dive on a particular topic, how I got from point A to point B, just email me or whatever it may be. My email address is on the opening slides and my LinkedIn profile. So anyway, thank you for your time. I know it's kind of a rush through things, but I want to leave some time open for any questions and answers or comments.
Well, and while y'all are typing in your questions, I want to thank you, Larry, for giving us this great presentation. This content was top-notch, and I know that we have both CFC members and non-CFC members on this call today. This is the type of content we like to bring every month to our members here at the CFC. So thank you, Larry. And for everybody who enjoyed this presentation, Larry's coming back for our December Wednesday webinar. This webinar was a special webinar. It was an IFMA benefit of the month hosted by the CFC, but Larry's going to come back and do our next CFC Wednesday webinar in December. I already have the registration link ready to go. I just dropped it in the chat. And here's what I'm going to ask of all of you. When I close out this presentation today, you're going to get a survey on your screen. It'll pop up immediately when I close out our webinar. And one of the questions on the survey is, what do you want Larry to dive deeper into at our December Wednesday webinar? Because he covered a lot today, but he could only cover, this much of each topic. But what do you want him to go this much into in December? So if you'll answer that for me and all the other survey questions, I would appreciate it. And no questions yet from our audience. So I actually have a question for you, Larry. When you talk about facility leaders rather than facility managers, what do you think the biggest difference is between somebody who's just going to be a facility manager and somebody who's going to take it to the next step and be that facility leader? Did we lose Larry? We may have lost Larry, folks, but that's okay because we're at the end of the presentation. Oh, is he back? That's okay. I'll have Larry answer my question on the December Wednesday webinar. But folks, thank you so much for coming today. I hope to see you at the next one. Registration link is in the chat. And if there's no questions, then I'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
I'm back. Sorry,
Larry's
that's my
back.
audio.
No,
Hello.
That's amazing. Larry, did you hear my question?
I did not. So one more time, run it through me.
That's okay. This will be our final thoughts. What's going to be the difference between somebody being a facility manager and then going up to the next notch and becoming a facility leader? What's the biggest difference in your opinion?
Stop thinking like a facility manager and start thinking about the C-suite of your business. Again, the traditionally facilities is very transactional. Stop thinking transactional, start thinking transformational. That'll make the big difference. That's the leap I took when I stopped thinking about being a facilities manager strictly based on transactional stuff and start connecting, mentorships. That's an important thing. If your company has a mentorship program with other line of business leaders, get with them. I got a mentorship with people in marketing, people in sales, a managing director, and the first chief SAP. Those were my internal mentors because I outside in perspective. So stop thinking inside, start thinking outside. That's a great pathway to your future career.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Larry. Thank you everyone for joining. Please fill out the survey and I hope to see you at our next one. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Been a pleasure. Take care.